Hello, oodles and noodles. I'm going to do something I thought I would never do. I am going to showcase my bookcase, which is now, as you can see, gloriously empty. There's a reason why. I moved about a week ago, and I've been extremely lazy and haven't set it up yet. So I have two boxes filled with books here. Got about 100 or so that I'm going to set up in here. And believe it or not, 100 is very, very small. For anyone who's watched any of my older videos, you'll have seen me talk about how I used to have actually about 1,300 books. And after moving so many times back and forth, different apartments, and having to lug, there was nothing more frustrating than having to take down over 1,000 books, pack them, bring them somewhere, unpack them, and restock them. It takes forever. And it's just extremely frustrating. And after I had traveled when I was a bit younger, I decided that I really wanted to minimize how much I owned, and books were really my primary just obsession, especially at that point in my life. And so I had so many of them, and I decided to reduce down to only books that I really, really loved. They had to be the kind of novel or series that I knew I could reread even multiple times within a single year. They had to be things that really touched my heart. And there are still some books right here that I call them, they're in testing mode. It's very possible I'm going to get rid of them. But for now, most of what I have are things that I just enjoy. I've got some bigger series, from Brandon Sanderson, like the Stormlight Archives. I've got some smaller YA series, like the Lamplighters. I've got some poetry books. I've got some philosophy. I've got a little mix of everything, although it is primarily 90% fantasy, which is as it should be for everyone. If you don't have at least 90% fantasy books in your home, unfortunately, things are not going well for you. You might not realize it, but that's how it is. So we're going to try to unload back onto here, and hopefully in the future expand outwards. I want to eventually have more books again, but I'm being extremely picky. I do, of course, have a Kindle as well, so it's not that I only actually have 100 books. It's just that there's quite a few of them that are on Kindle because I consider them just good books, but not worthy of a physical copy, at least at this moment in time. So let's start off with, we have actually Jim Butcher's Codex Alera series, which I think I'm missing a book. It's probably hidden somewhere in the boxes. But I definitely want to showcase this series, so we'll put this second shelf because it is one of these series I have enjoyed the most in my life. For those of you who haven't read Codex Alera, I did do a review of book 1, and I will be forthcoming with the other books in the series eventually. A lot of people, for some reason, I think it has to do with booktubers. They tend to do a review of book 1, let's say, of a series, and even though they enjoyed the book, I think because the video doesn't get maybe much views from people, they never do book 2, they never do book 3, they never do book 4. I don't do that. Like, I'm going to be releasing tomorrow the last book. Oh no, sorry. Screw that. I already released the last book in the Dragon Crown War series, which is a series that actually I had physical copies. I got rid of it. I wasn't really into the series, but I still released a video of every single book in the series I read because I don't really care how many views I get on these things. I'm not doing this as a business. I already have a job full time, and I do this for fun. So some videos are maybe going to get like 10 views, and that's okay. 10 people watched, 10 people watched. It's cool. Who knows? Maybe we'll get 0 views on this. So, next book, random. Leaves of Grass, Walt Whitman. This is a book I'm torn on because Leaves of Grass is one of the, for people who don't read poetry or know much about it, Walt Whitman is one of the most famous poets, especially American poets. ever. And Leaves of Grass is kind of his seminal work, and I love how beautiful this is. You can feel the text. Actually, it's a really wonderfully, beautifully made book. As soon as I saw it, I just knew I wanted it. And it's a bit weird because I'm actually not a big fan of Walt Whitman. Almost every single poem is extremely long, and it just doesn't really hit me. Although, to be fair, within almost every single poem, he always has a line or two that just hits hard. So I keep this more out of just pure pleasure for the actual book cover itself and how it looks and how it feels, and for the occasional like little gander and random things. So we're going to put poetry down here for now because I definitely do enjoy more so my fantasy, and I will zoom out so you can actually see the whole case. I might leave the bottom shelf actually to set up some posters and stuff depending on how many books fit in here. This bookcase is actually quite a bit larger than the old one I had, which was a piece of crap. It's the first little gift I got from an ex-girlfriend of mine. She actually made a little bookmark with the first poem. I don't know if you can read that. The first poem I'd ever written, and it was actually the first website I'd ever made, like 15 years ago. So I'll put that on the side for now. Flowers of Evil. It's a Baudelaire poetry book. I have never actually read this yet, so it's been sitting here for a while. We'll put it down here. Now we'll get into more fantasy. So we've got Foundling and Lamplighter. I do have book 3 somewhere in this box. I'm actually rereading Foundling right now, and I love this series. For anyone who hasn't read it, some people know it by Monster Blood Tattoo. It's one of those books that has 2 different names. It is one of the best YA series I've ever read in my life. It is also one of the most frustrating series. I will be talking about it in the reviews. It's such an interesting Victorian, maybe steampunkish a bit world with a fascinating monster sailor world. It's hard to describe. It really needs its own video of itself to really make people understand it, but it is one of the most fascinating worlds I've ever seen, and also extremely frustrating because when it ends, there's this whole backdrop story that's kind of bleeding through the entire series that just never gets spoken about after, and never gets pursued. It's really, really unfortunate. I've checked multiple times over the years to see if DM Cornish is doing anything else. I've seen him write. He had a little short story thing going on his website, but he's never talked about really expanding the world. I don't know why. He got a ton of awards for it, so it's a little bit unfortunate. Warded Man, Peter V. Brent. I really, really loved book 1. The other subsequent books, I will be doing a review of this after I reread it, but definitely book 1 of The Warded Man was one of the most fun novels I've ever read. Conceptually, just the whole magic system, using glyphs on someone's body itself to like absorb and then reflect magic, and creation of a whole new combat style just using glyphs. The main character was really, really cool, especially in book 1. We will put this there for now. As soon as I find the other ones. Why is everything so mixed up? Jesus. Astronomy of Ghosts by Chris McCool. As far as I know, Chris pretty much only works off of Instagram. He is an Insta poet, but he did do this one book. I don't know if he's done others since because I don't really use Insta much. I'm not really on socials. I hate social media, minus YouTube, obviously. But yeah, really, really amazing poet. I definitely recommend checking him out. Pablo Neruda, Book of Twilight. Actually, Pablo is considered one of the seminal poets of the 20th century, 21st century. He's from Chile, I believe. He was a big activist and wonderful, wonderful poet. I love his poetry. I think I still have this larger work of his, which is just a culmination of a bunch of his poetry. And actually, it is the first poetry book I read when I was 23, 24, and it is what got me into poetry and is what made me start writing poetry. So I love Pablo. I actually got this book Kickstartered. For those of you who don't know Kickstarter, you should check it out. It's really cool. There's tons of stuff there. Games, books, music. A lot of people who just don't want to deal with investments and all that kind of crap, they go directly to the source, us, and they ask us to get the money so they can make stuff. So people had found Pablo's first poems from when he was very, very young, a little whippersnapper, and they wanted to make a book out of it, just to make sure that those poems got out there. So I helped Kickstarter it, and they sent me a nice little copy. It was quite nice. James Rollins. My dad actually gave me this book. I do like James Rollins. He's more of a action, mystery kind of guy. He has quite a few different series. He has the Sigma series, I know, which I think this is a part of. Yeah, Sigma Force novel. So my dad gave me this to read. I have not gotten to it yet. Put it right over there. He also has quite a few books that are standalone that are really cool. He has one called Amazonia, which I always loved. He mixes a lot of biology and science, sometimes sort of Da Vinci Code style stuff also. So it's really fun. Guns, Germs, and Steel. This book was a pain in the ass to read. I enjoy science. I enjoy history. I did go into history when I was in university, but I'm not a big fan of reading those kinds of books because they tend to be very boring. There's a reason I like fantasy. But Guns, Germs, Steel kind of tries to explain why some countries and continents advanced so much more rapidly than others. And tries to, he's not really giving an answer to it, more of just a theory, a general idea of like all these differences that separated, Western countries, Southern countries, Eastern countries, all these differences, and why some still stayed hunter-gatherer and others became, superpowers on the world stage. So really, really cool. If you're someone who likes that kind of stuff, I would definitely recommend it. We'll put those down, on the same shelf as my poetry for now. Daylight War. Another book in the Ward Man series. I don't know which book this is. Third. No, I think it's the fourth. Oh, it's confusing sometimes. March to the Sea, March to the Stars. These are the only sci-fi books I own, really. In terms of this series, there's actually 5 books. I think 5 books. I love this series. I just read through the 4 books. I've got the 5th one still to read. I'm going to be doing reviews if I can remember everything. I have a bad habit of getting caught up in a series. I finish book 1, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a review. And then I finish book 2, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a review. And then all the books are merged into my head. So to do a review of just book 1, I'm confused. Bad habit. But I do thoroughly enjoy that series. It's got this really, really wonderful mesh of sci-fi, but also just it's a historical reenactment in a certain way, because these advanced people, humans, crash land on this planet, and they have to go from one side of the planet to the other. But starting from one side to the other, the whole planet is at different levels of technological advancement, and so as they go through, just to survive, they end up pushing forward the technological knowledge of each place that they go. They end up changing things politically. It's a shit show. And the development of the main character, Prince Roger, is really, really quite nice and fun. There's a lot of stuff that's corny. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. There's a lot of things that aren't developed well, and you're supposed to kind of feel for it emotionally, but it's not there. But overall, I find it a really fun series. And I keep telling myself to check out other sci-fis. I just never get around to it because there's so much fantasy to read. So much. So, David Dalglish. I've got Soulkeeper and Raven Caller. These are the keepers. Actually, I haven't read book 2 yet, but I read book 1, Soulkeeper. Super, super cool. I really enjoyed it. It's basically sort of medievalish times, and the fae, fairies, and monsters used to always be around, but something happened in the past and they left the world, and they're starting to come back. And so our main character is dealing with that reality, as basically everything every which way that humans are used to living is slowly changing as magic is seeping back into the world. It's super, super, super cool. I am going to put this up here because I actually really, really enjoyed it, and I'm gonna read book 2 soon. Warpaint, Patrick Hart, another person I got off Instagram when I used to go on there. He's a phenomenal poet, phenomenal poet, really deep, really dark. I don't know his actual past, but it seems like it was quite rough. I think he dealt with a lot of depression, and I think there might have been quite a bit of death in his life. So unfortunate for sure, but beautiful, beautiful poetry. It's called Warpaint. Some pretty cool styles, actually, if you can see inside. I like how everything's done. Down there, Harry Potter. Of course, Harry Potter. You know, grew up with Harry Potter. I'm one of those people, controversially these days, who is gonna say that I frankly don't give a shit what J.K. Rowling does or says. Everybody's been shitting on J.K. lately. I don't care. I don't care what a musician says. I don't care what a painter says. When I appreciate a piece of art or a book or whatever it is, I'm just in that moment. I don't need to know the personal life of the person who did it. It's not important to me. Now, I know some people love to get into that. For example, like I do like listening to Brandon Sanderson because I enjoy his books. But when I listen to Brandon Sanderson, I listen to him talk about books, about art, about creativity. I don't care about his political views. And if he ever made a video talking about his political views, I wouldn't watch it. Because just because he makes a good book series doesn't mean I give a shit about his political views. He's not a politician, he's not a philosopher. Well, actually, we could maybe call him a philosopher. I mean, after Stormlight Archive with Dalinar, beautiful philosophies right there. But you get the point. I don't understand people who enjoy something and then become emotionally involved with what the author or whatever is doing. Doesn't make sense to me. Harry Potter is not that great of a series, to be honest, but it's really fun. And it's something I grew up with. It's nostalgic, and I'm always going to continue enjoying it and giving props to it because it is still a really, really fun series. I'm not going to tell people not to read it just because J.K. became an idiot. And even then, I don't know if she's actually an idiot. Maybe other people are idiots and they're freaking out about her commentary for no reason because everyone is kind of emotionally unstable these days as far as I'm concerned. Everybody's a baby. Someone says something, everybody takes it personally. They read something in a meme or in an Instagram post, they take it as fact. No one fact checks anymore. Everything is bleh. So I don't get involved in that stuff because I'm not going to fact check. Therefore, I'm not going to believe anything I read online because I'm not going to take the time to fact check it. It's as simple as that. I found the other Codex Alera books. Sorry for that little rant, but it's just annoying me. Book 1, book 2. We're going to put you right over here. Try not to knock everything down. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I got the rest of the Harry Potter books. This is actually, you'll notice these are all, I don't know actually if you can see that. These are all the newer Harry Potter books, but this is actually limited edition destroyed Jason book. This light is right. Move that over so it doesn't blind people. But yeah, this is the old school. This book is the property of Jason. Got this when it first came out, 1999, I think. 1999? 1999? 1998. I'm old. For those of you who are wondering, I actually did have all the original copies of the others. It's just that I was really nice when I was younger, and I lent them to a girl I liked. And she moved to another province, and was supposed to be coming back and forth. We lost touch. She kept them, and that's it. Stupid guy stuff. Brent Weeks, the Night Angel trilogy. I love this series. It's not perfect. There's a lot of idiocy within it, and there's a lot of stuff that's left out. Sort of, I really, really get frustrated when stories kind of leave this backdrop of all these bigger events, but then just lets it fall through and nothing ever happens. That does happen quite a bit in the series. That being said, it is really, really fun. I think the magic system was super, super cool. I found this around the same time as I found The Warded Man, and it really was a breath of fresh air. Just like a new way of seeing magic systems being used, especially in core with combat. So that was cool. Put that on the second. Let's see. Oh, Factotum, Book 3 in the Lamplighter series. Put you down there with Book 1 and Book 2. Raymond E. Feist, King of Ashes. I have not read this. This is Book 1 of the Firemane Saga. I thoroughly enjoyed Raymond E. Feist's older novels. For those of you who haven't read, I don't remember the actual name of the series, but it starts off with The Magician. It's a story of Pug, who's this little kitchen boy who eventually becomes one of the most powerful sorcerers pretty much on the planet. And there's multiple worlds, and it's a really big series that manages to show off quite a few characters' point of views in a really, really interesting and well thought out way. So I'm definitely gonna read this book eventually. I don't know if this is set in the same world. Now that I think about it, I don't know. I'll put this up here for now. Poppy War. I've heard tons of good stuff about this. I have not read it yet. I'm behind. I'm kind of going through all my old books first and reviewing them and then getting to the newer books. So I've heard tons of great stuff about the Poppy War. I'm really interested to finally read it. Put that up there as a reminder to myself. Crucible of Souls, Sorcery Ascended Sequence. I read this one time. I honestly can't remember anything about it, so I gotta reread it first before I judge. So I'm gonna put it up there. Ready Player One. I suppose it's sort of a sci-fi book. Also, I think of it more as a geeky gamer book than anything. But yeah, I enjoyed Ready Player One. The movie was acceptable, but I didn't like all the changes they did. I was surprised I actually enjoyed this book because I'm not an 80s geek. I didn't really get into all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it was thoroughly fun just to read through the pacing and everything. I did a review of it. I think. I did. A long time ago. Check it out. We'll put you down here with the March books. Everything's falling! Viktor E. Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. This philosophy book, read. Viktor was stuck in the internment camps in Nazi Germany, lost his family. Very, very sad. Very small, but hits right to the old gut. I'll put this down here. Guns, Germs, and Steel. Now we've got Patrick Rothfuss. Controversial Mr. Patrick. I really, really loved Name of the Wind. I'm gonna reread it, do a review of it. I remember The Wise Man's Fear being still enjoyable, but it kind of dragged, and I wasn't sure. I didn't like how certain things were done, but at the same time, you know, it's been 11 years, something like that, since book 2 came out, and we're still waiting for book 3. I think it's kind of crazy. I understand Patrick's drive to, you know, perfect book 3, but I mean, 11 years doesn't make sense for one book to me. Maybe I'm being ridiculous. I fully feel like there's going to end up being a book 4. And maybe that's why it's taking so long, because he's actually just got too much content. You realized, oh shit, it's not going to be a trilogy. I could be wrong though. Could be wrong. I hope I'm not, because there's so much in this world that I feel needs to be expanded. I don't see how one book could do it justice. I'll get back to that thought. Another James Rollins books. My dad, my papa, giving me books. Put that with the other one over here. Another Patrick Rothfuss book, The Slow Regard of Silent Things. I'd have to say this is in my top 3 or 5 favorite books ever written. This is a small, very, very tiny little novella showcasing one of the little side characters inside of the Name of the Wind, the Kingkiller Chronicles, named Ari, and it's six days in her life, as she's kind of doing her thing. And if you haven't read the series, it's kind of hard to explain what this book is about. But when you understand the magic system and the naming within the Kingkiller Chronicles, and you understand a little bit of how Ari is in those books, you fully can see how beautiful, beautiful this little novella is. It's kind of a homage to someone who is basically gone down the deep end. It's a lovely series, book. Sorry, and it's kind of the only reason I've held off hope for book 3, because he made this after book 2, and it was just so wonderful. I even tattooed a little quote from the book on my chesty. Italian, Revenant. I love this book. Michael A. Stackpole did a wonderful job with this book. It's a standalone. I wish it was a series. I did a review of it. I can't seem to remember anything today, but I'm pretty sure I did a review of this. If I haven't, I will. But it's a great standalone novel. Really cool world, really cool magic system, interesting political hoopla. Put it up here. David Gemmell, one of the biggest action book writers ever. Adventure, action, just phenomenal. He's got quite a few series with the Regante and others that I really loved. This is a standalone novel, The Echoes of the Great Song, and I like it. It's got this kind of magic, sci-fi-ish vibe. It's very sad. It's kind of the ending of a civilization, really, and it was done really well. I enjoyed it. Put it up top. Stop falling. Hold thyselves accountable. Neil Gaiman. Graveyard Book. Neverwhere. Done reviews for both. One of my favorite series ever. I keep saying series instead of standalone novels. Standalone. I love them. If you're just looking for wit and magic and mystery and fae and just the dark side of things, really great author for that. His Dark Materials. I haven't reread this series in a really long time because the ending always makes me super depressed. But I really love it. I'm gonna reread it soon and then watch the TV series from Britain. They made a movie, of The Golden Compass. I did not enjoy it at all, although visually it was quite beautiful. But the series I heard on television is really great. So I'm going to get to it eventually. Skull Throne. Another Warded Man. This is book 4, The Demon Cycle. So this would be book 3. I've got book 2 somewhere. I've actually got the little bookies for Harry Potter. Quidditch, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which of course spawned the idea for the newer movies, Fantastic Beasts, although it's just like bare bones. Barely gave anything to it. Bucket 1 complete! God, so many books. Okay, more poetry. We got Rilke and Seneca. This is not poetry, this is a philosophy. One of the Greek Stoics. Very good book. I enjoy it. It's really great for just skimming through and getting some little points on how to live life and how to appreciate things. And Rilke is sort of like poetry, really, but this is his letters to one of his, I think it's his nephews or cousins. But really great advice. Again, a lot of stoicism right there. I try to take that in as much as possible because I am quite an anxious person. I am very anxiety ridden, and I kind of dip in depression a lot, and I lose myself quite a bit. And that helps me kind of center myself, those concepts. That's why I try to stay so minimalist in my life also, because I try to just control my environment to a certain degree, because I tend to be all over the place. Exuberant Animal. I used to read Mr. Frank Fornsich's blog a lot. He actually is a beautiful person. He talks a lot about just the philosophy of movement, of how to think of our bodies, that we are animals, and that we need to express ourselves creatively through our bodies, and just learn to enjoy and be in the moment in ourselves. Really, really great. Really good exercise advice also. So super cool if you want to check that out. Put that down here with the other stuff. Barbell Buddha. These are the collected writings of Chris Moore, who was really, really, really famous at a certain point, especially when CrossFit started burgeoning. They had the I'm blanking, the Barbell Shrugged podcast. Blank for a second. So him and two other hosts. No, there was three of them. So there were three hosts: Chris and Mike and Dave. Can't remember, but they had a really, really famous podcast when podcasts were just starting and CrossFit was just burgeoning. They were just exploding. Everybody was listening to Barbell Shrugged for CrossFit advice, health advice, training advice. It was really great. And Chris was sort of the philosopher, power lifter of the group. He was really great, really funny, really, really whip smart. And he started his own podcast called Barbell Buddha, where he would just philosophize on life. And unfortunately, he died super, super young. I think he was like 38, something like that. His family, they had just had another child. They moved to Europe. So that he was starting like this whole new chapter in his life. And I think that's probably what led to it. He was in great shape, but unfortunately had that heart attack and passed away super, super young. So I bought this book in commemoration of him and to help his family out, of course. So put that down here, the other philosophy books. On Equilibrium. This is a book on humanism. I think I read it once. I gotta go through it again and see if I actually want to keep it. I think it was interesting back when I read it. Sorry, I'll be right back. I'm back! Meditations. Bruce Lee, Artist of Life. Both philosophy texts, one by Marcus Aurelius, the other by, of course, Le Bruce Lee. If you don't know who Bruce Lee is, you've got problems. If you don't know who Marcus Aurelius is, honestly, I think you have problems also. I mean, Marcus Aurelius was basically the most famous emperor of Rome, and his Meditations is considered one of the seminal works of Stoicism and just learning how to live life. So really, really cool. One of the most powerful men in the world, basically just talking about how to not be a child and how to take control of yourself. And Bruce Lee, same thing. Basically how to live a creative and beautiful life. Really, really great books. Yoga. Rodney. I did have a little moment in time where I was doing more yoga. I haven't done it in years now, but I really enjoyed Rodney's book. It's a book of obviously showcasing yoga, but he's being sort of interviewed, also having a conversation with one of his students who happens to be a journalist as well. And just their conversations about family, friends, how to think of things is actually really, really lovely. So I would check that book out. Down here also, probably going to reorganize those a bit after, but The 4-Hour Chef. This book is a monster. I don't know if you can see that. I can't even hold it. It's got everything. So Tim Ferriss, for those of you who don't know, one of the most famous podcasters in the world. He's also a bestseller for like 7 books now, I think. And I enjoyed his other books. He had The 4-Hour Body, The 4-Hour Work Week. But The 4-Hour Chef is really, to me, his seminal work because besides it being huge, he's really finally, because Tim's thing was always how to learn better, how to think about learning, how can we improve our capacity to learn multiple things. And in The 4-Hour Chef, even though it sounds like a cookbook, it's basically him explaining his process on how to learn things throughout the whole series. And he does this through the medium of cooking, which he, before this, never did and kind of hated. And so he learned how to cook. And I mean, he talks about a lot of other things within it, but if you really want to understand cooking, like how to be really good at it, I would read that book. It's really, really cool and it's just fun. And again, it is also teaching how to learn better, languages, anything. Really, really cool. Guide to Better Movement by Todd Hargrove. This is basically about talking about movement. It's pretty cool. It's interesting. Very sciencey. R.A. Saboteur. We're back to fantasy finally. So this is a collection of the original 3 books in Dris Do'Urden's story about how he basically came out of the Dark Elf land and came out into the world. I really, really love this trilogy. I'm not a huge fan of the Forgotten Realms, but that was good. I liked it. I've got the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks, which I thoroughly loved and hated because simultaneously it's a really interesting world. It's a really interesting magic system. The manipulation of color and using that to craft magic was really, really cool. But the main characters didn't really hit me that much. But to be fair, I've only actually read book 1 and book 2. I never got around to reading book 3 and 4. So I've got to reread the series, start reviewing it, and then get to book 3 and book 4. Maybe it gets better, maybe it gets worse. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. This is the Pablo Neruda big-ass poetry book I told you about. I still love it. One of my favorite. On the Move by Oliver Sacks. Philosopher, bodybuilder, neurologist, scientist, doctor, amazing human being. One of the most inspirational people. This is the first autobiography, I guess, that I've ever read. I really, really loved it. It's a beautiful story of his life and how he went from living in Europe and coming over to the United States and traveling and his experiences, not only as someone who's was a part of so many of those things. As I said, he was a professional bodybuilder for a bit, and then he was also a doctor, and he studied memory and music. He has a book called Musicophilia, which is gorgeous book, and I loved it. It's all about his work with Alzheimer's patients and people who had brain damage and how music allowed them to kind of come back to reality for a little while. Really, really wonderful. But this book is really, really beautiful. He was also, he is, I suppose he's passed on, but he's gay. And it kind of bleeds throughout the entire story of him dealing with that back in the olden days when it wasn't really as acceptable. And that was really, really nice to read and see. He had his first lover when he was in his 70s, and it's just beautiful reading about that. Like, this is a man who'd been alone for so long and then found a love when he was so old. It was really, really nice story. Really, really, really nice. If this book falls again, I'm gonna lose my shit. This is a school book. Children of Blood and Bone. Surprisingly enjoyed this. I did a review. I still need to read book 2, which I have. Not in physical copy. I have it on Kindle, but if I do enjoy book 2, I'm going to buy it in physical copy also. But I liked this book quite a bit. Gift of Fear. I did a review of this a long time ago. Really, really smart book. I think everybody should read just to understand human psychology and nature. I think it's super important, even especially for women, because it does talk a lot about stalkers and dealing with, some heavy stuff that I won't get into, but I think it's a good book for everyone to read. Put that down here. The Desert Spear, book 2. Don't ask me why I have small paperbacks and only one hardcover of that series. I'm a bit lost. We Few. This is book 5 of the Prince Roger series, the sci-fi series I told you before. Let's do this here. I'm actually missing book 1 because I lent it to my friend. I gotta get it back from her. She's taking forever. Now, this is the Lycanius trilogy. I have done a review of all 3 books. Check it out if you want. Thoroughly enjoyable series. Has its faults, but of course, still really, really great. I'm going to push these over because I want to showcase the next series more. Now, probably my number 1, or at least in my top 3 books, series I've ever read, Stormlight Archives by Brandon Sanderson. Oh my god, is this going to fit? Oh, I'm sorry, Children of Blood and Bone, but you are going down. Huh. And going to need to make more space eventually because there is, of course, a 5th book coming out. But I love this series. I have not done any reviews of it yet because I'm kind of leaving it almost for last because it is the one I enjoy the most. So I'm leaving that for now. Check it out. I still haven't read out A Rhythm of War, the 4th book yet. I want to really, really have the mindset. Sacred Cow, Rob Wolf. One of the most fun, enjoyable people to listen to in terms of health advice. I've been listening to him for 10 years at least, back when he still had the Paleo podcast. He's the one who kind of pushed the paleo movement into the world, and he's kind of taken a step back from it. It's one of the reasons why I love him so much is that he cares about people's health. He doesn't give a shit about diet ideology or anything like that. He's like, if you can eat carbs and it works out well for you, fantastic. If you don't, cool. If you can eat high fat and it works well for you, good. He's like, what matters is quality. What matters is how you look, feel, and perform. What matters is that we all work on this together. What matters is staying fit and healthy. What matters is getting outside and being part of the world and socializing. And he really, really cares about the environment. And that's kind of where they've pivoted a lot of their effort and energy into. And so this book is about actually kind of a case for shitting on factory farming, because he's definitely against factory farming, but he is not against meat and he is not against animal husbandry. He's against just the malpractice of it. So for those of you who want to see another point of view, because now the kind of vegan, vegetarian agenda has been pushed a lot, this is a really wonderful book to start off with. Or you could just listen to his podcast. He talks about a lot of this stuff. I'd check that out. Houseless. This is another poetry book. I really, really enjoyed this. It's a great, great cover. Got a great feel to it. It's by Travis House, who is also another quite well-known Instagram poet. He's a Canadian, a fellow Canadian. And when I used to speak to him once in a while on Instagram, because we both kind of followed each other for our poetry, which I no longer have up on Instagram. I've closed down Instagram like 4 times and just removed all my stuff from it, so I'm really bad with this. I have a love-hate relationship with those kinds of things because I found so many great poets on Instagram, but I find it's just a mind suck. It just sucks all your time. You can get distracted so easily, and there's not as much benefit. So, yeah. But I would still check out Travis. He's really great. Own the Day, Own Your Life. Aubrey Marcus. He's a founder and CEO of On It, which is a huge training and supplement company, which I really, really like their stuff. They study it. He's in partnership with Joe Rogan, who love him or hate him. They have a really great thing going on. Oh, I left the $25 sticker on it. Yeah. Oh, don't rip. Come on. There we go. Beautiful. Really cool. I don't always agree with everything he says, but it's just, I think if 90% of people followed most of the stuff he said in here, most people would be a lot healthier. Really, really great. And the final book, which I think is great because it's another Harry Potter book, and this is one of the illustrated copies. Oh, God. Really, really lovely artwork inside. I don't know if you can see all that, but really, really great. Look how cool Hagrid looks. I love this book. I've thought about getting the other ones in the series because there are other illustrated books, but they are really expensive. This book was like $50 or something like that. I will get the other ones eventually, but we'll see. I have no idea where to put this. We'll just put you here for now. I suppose that would be best. That's it, actually, folks. Let's see if you can see everything. So that's basically there. So it's all there. Now, I'm going to add in some little extras. Now, I have no idea where I got these from. I've had them for years. I've never gotten rid of them for some reason. But I don't know where I got them from. Did I take them from my sister? Were they mine when I was younger? I no longer recall. But I keep them. a little bit everywhere. So I'll put this guy here. And we'll put a little boy here. Stay there. Protect. Ooh, I forgot a book. Warbreaker, Brandon Sanderson. I just finished this book. I'm going to make a review. So far, I'd have to say it's going to be a pretty positive review. It started off, I was like, it took me like 2-3 days. I was kind of reading little bits and pieces. I'm like, I don't really care about the characters. And then it took off. I really, really love it. I'm kind of sad that it's a standalone. Brandon did leave it in a way that I think he could come back to it if he wants to, which makes me happy. But I really, 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 really liked it. Let's see if I can squish it in here. Yeah, I can. Ha-ha. That's with the other books. That's with the other books. It's fantastic. This is actually, I got this from Rowling and Polly when, for those of you who've seen me in my blue Squirtle shirt, they create kind of weirdly designed Pokemon shirts and other stuff. And this comes with it when you buy it at Comic-Con, where he just sort of shows his base sketch of how he had done things. So that was kind of fun. I will put this, down here, down below. And now I have pretty much a whole shelf and a half empty on the bottom, which is great for future buying. But for now, I am going to put out my disc plates. This new apartment I've moved into is not exactly ideal for putting up posters and stuff. I will put a few around my screen after. For now, I think I'll just put my disc plates. These are really cool metal sheets that you can get stuff. So this is Harry Potter. I'll put this down below. Got another one really beautiful for books. Also got Harry Potter, Zelda, and a quote from George R. R. Martin. I'll set these up down below. Technically, they're supposed to be stuck to the wall, but when I've moved multiple times, I lost the Sticky McGee to put on the back. So now they go on the floor until I order more disc plates. I think I'll leave it at that. This is 47 minutes long. Nobody's going to watch it for this long, but you know what? It was enjoyable. It was fun to have people come along for the ride. For anyone who actually watches even 10 minutes of this, good job. Thank you all, and I hope you like the way I set it all up. If you don't, it's unfortunate. I am heartbroken, but that's okay. That's life. Let me know your own ideas of how to set up your fantasy books. Should I be doing it alphabetically? I know some people are crazy about that kind of stuff. I just kind of do it by feel and the books I like to see the most because I read them the most. I don't really care. Maybe if I had more bookcases, I'd start getting really anal. I probably would. If I had 4 or 5 bookcases like I used to, I would start going into like batches and how series are set up. I'd be manipulating more, probably adding in posters and all that stuff into spaces. I'm not at that point yet. I am not at that point. I'd like to be, but I'm so anal with my book buying now. It's not happening, but we'll see. Thanks for checking us out. Have a wonderful day.